Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're all doing very well today. More Golgari gameplay right here for you, and we are still on the Dark Confidant list, just like we have been for the last few videos. Now, before we get straight into the play, I have to thank a brand new patron, Zachary Morel. Thank you so much, my friend, for supporting the channel. Much appreciated. He is a new Inquisitor among the ranks. Glad to have him. And if you would like to support the channel, if you would like to exchange value for value, you can visit the link in the description below to find my Patreon page. We've got our first ever scouting report that I'm doing as a Patreon exclusive. That'll be coming out early next month, and some other tier rewards that might be up your alley, so check it out. And yeah, let's get into the game. We have lost the die roll, but we have a pretty spectacular hand, right? It is a little bit painful. Let's point that out right out of the gates. We have a high likelihood of having to shock in this land at some point. Thoughtseize is, of course, a painful card as well, so if our life total is going to matter greatly, this is an unusually painful hand by Golgari standards, right? But what do we like about it? Well, we like the 3 to 4 land to spell ratio. That is usually what we want to see. The Thoughtseizes themselves, despite being painful, are obviously very, very good in a lot of games, especially in a blind game 1. We really like to see discard. We do have both colors in abundance. We can make triple black, triple green with these lands. And of course, Liliana on 3 into Tireless Tracker on 4 is looking like a really nice curve in a whole lot of matchups. So I am very happy to keep this hand, while respecting the fact that it can cause some havoc with our life total. But our opponent will keep 7, and they will lead us off Darksteel Citadel, Chromatic Star, Mox Opal, Ancient Stirrings. Well, the casual 4-spell turn 1, or excuse me, 3-spell turn 1, 4 permanents on the field. Yeah, that's pretty good. Definitely regretting even more being on the draw, because Thoughtseize might have disrupted that in a very meaningful way. So they get to just go halfway to emptying their hand. Ancient Stirrings is revealing a Scrap Trawler. So this, my friends, is KCI. And here is my caveat for this matchup. I don't know anyone who plays KCI in paper. None of my friends with whom I talk about the game on a regular basis play KCI, and I don't run into it that much online, despite its high meta share. I think its numbers are artificially low online simply because it is a pain to click through if somebody makes you play out the whole combo. Obviously, that's not great on MTGO. There's no way to demonstrate the infinite loop, so you just have to get carpal tunnel clicking forever. And so all of that is by the way of saying that this is arguably, at least of the tier decks that I've shown you on this channel, arguably the matchup I know the least well. So I'm always here to help show the way forward, to help show the best lines, at least as I see them, to the community, and I'm going to try to do the same here, but this might just end up being a piece of gameplay where you show me the best lines. So I always encourage feedback, and I always encourage constructive criticism. This is doubly true here, so if you see me take the wrong line, please do not hesitate to let me know. So for those who don't know, very briefly, KCI is a deck that leverages the card KRark-clan Ironworks, which allows you to, it's a 4-drop artifact. You can sacrifice an artifact, not leaving itself out. It can sacrifice itself to make 2 colorless mana, and you can kind of create an infinite loop involving KCI, Scrap Trawler, and Mirror Retriever, and there are some other ways to create other loops or mini loops within the combo, but that's the major one. And they basically get to churn through the deck, make as much mana as they possibly need. They can loop Pyrite Spellbomb to kill you. They can hard cast Emrakul, although that's a little bit less fashionable than it used to be. So yeah, they're a combo deck, and they use artifact permanents to go off. So Scrap Trawler is a piece of the combo that we see right in their hand in turn 1, and look, I was right when I misspoke earlier. It did turn into a 4-spell turn, because they have a Mishra's Bauble. They're just going to crack it to peek at the top of our deck, and then they will pass. So, yeah, a bit of a scary start. Once again, we're very, very unhappy to have been on the draw. Turn 1 Thoughtseize might have made that a lot less impressive from them. But we still get a turn 1 Thoughtseize, it's just after they've dumped out their hand. But we know that Scrap Trawler at least is going to be a good take. Now, what else do they have? Well, they have another forest, and that is it. So they're a little light on lands. They definitely, it seems like they need to hit one more. At least they also get a lot of utility out of their land base. I do know that. The big problem about trying to keep them low on mana is that they have this Mox Opal, which of course is going to be very good. So what do they have here? They have the Scrap Trawler, which is a core piece of the combo, and even just as a value creature, like a 3/2 for 3 that buys back something, it can already buy back that Mishra's Bauble, which is just a free draw for them. This is always a good discard take in my opinion for those reasons. It's part of the combo, and it's a decent value piece on its own. They have Terrarion, which is also a really good way for them to keep churning through the deck once they start going off, and even even when you just use it as a value piece, it's really not that bad. They can fix their own mana, kind of like how Tron will use these stars and spheres to keep churning through the deck and fixing their mana. Well, the same thing applies to KCI. So Terrarion is definitely a really nice one in the deck. Wouldn't be a bad take either. I think I'd rather take Scrap Trawler, than Terrarion. Finally, we have Spine of Ish-Sa. Now, this is not a card, to my knowledge, that is always in the deck. Again, I don't know it all that well. I don't know it as well as I should. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is stock now. But obviously, this is a really crazy piece against a mid-range deck like ours, because it ETBs, destroys a permanent. They can sack it to the KCI and maybe to other sacrifice outlets, get it back, do it again. Yeah, very, very much a problem for us. So I think we're going to want to take this away eventually, but we can afford to wait a turn on that. They're not going to have 7 mana on turn 2. We'll take away the Scrap Trawler for now. That might be the highest priority piece in their hand anyway, because of course we just have to first and foremost not die to the combo. So I like taking the Trawler there. We'll have probably Thoughtseize them again next turn and maybe take the Spine, but let's see what they do here. Eager Wellspring is another good one, kind of in the same vein as Terrarion. ETBs draws a card. When it goes to the graveyard, it draws a card, and of course, with the fact that they sacrifice things to KCI, you can see, how this deck functions in terms of its engine. So they'll draw a card, they'll play out that Terrarion, and anything else. They will pass. Alright, we draw Field of Ruin. That may prove relevant, maybe not. Either way, it's definitely not going to be relevant this turn. This turn we just basically wish to Thoughtseize. We probably would have considered Thoughtseizing even if we found a 2-drop, right? Because we're going to want to play Liliana next turn. So, yep, we just see that they have a Grove of the Burn Willows. Fair enough. We'll take the Spine away, which feels good. Alright, Overgrown Tomb and Pass. So they are basically top decking now. They have a lot of the engine room down and ready to roll, but they do need to find some of the combo pieces. Looks like they're going to start digging, so they'll make red-green, sack the Terrarion, draw a card, and play an Engineered Explosives on 2. So this is pretty intelligent from our opponent, in my opinion. Of course, we cluster a fair amount around the 2-drop slot in terms of our threats. Unfortunately for them, we don't have any in hand right now. We just have a couple of 3s, so I'm very happy to see that. That said, Engineered Explosives is completely incredible in the deck because they can afford to main deck it, because it's a great piece of the engine with KCI. You can cast it for 0, you can sack it, make some mana. It's just kind of like a mana rock in that sense, and of course, it's very, very good against, as, for how the card was designed to be played, as like a sweeper of sorts against a lot of the meta. That's very good. So I think they made the right play to blind name that on 2, but it will not benefit them, at least for now. And of course we have to run out the Liliana here. That's just the play. She's very good in the matchup. We're going to get the last card out of their hand, which feels great. We get to pitch a land we don't particularly need. Alright, they did not particularly need their last card either, but that's still fine. Liliana Ultimate is one of the most reasonable ways to win a game here against KCI, that is for sure. Turn 3 Lily is great. Opponent will play out a Mirror Retriever, so this is, again, something that's part of the combo and is a nice value piece just as far as like if it dies in the course of affairs, whether it needs to be blocked or whether it is a chump blocker, you can buy back any artifact card. So Scrap Trawler, artifact card with lesser CMC, Mirror Retriever can get back anything. It can even get back the Spine, which is actually kind of scary. So anyway, that was a pretty good find for them. Alright, Fatal Push. Fatal Push is not the best right now. Sometimes it can be useful to disrupt the combo, but that's a little bit hazy, as you might expect. So here we're just going to do the value play of Tracker into Twilight Mire, which is a little bit awkward as far as, you know, being able to hold anything up goes. But still fine, we'll make a clue. We'll tick up the Lily. I think we do have to push the Fatal Push here. Ditch the Fatal Push, rather. Abrupt Decay's got a lot of targets on the field, and it can even kill the same things Fatal Push can kill, right? If we need to kill a Retriever or a Trawler for some reason, Abrupt Decay can do it. So that's the play. And Tireless Tracker does at least stop Retriever from pressurizing Liliana, which at this point I think might be our most realistic route to victory, but they don't want to throw the Retriever away as a chump attacker just to buy back an artifact. And I guess what could they buy back? Well, let's count their mana. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana on field, so there's still a couple land drops away from casting the Spine, which would be the big one to buy back as far as a value card goes. So they would just be throwing away the Retriever to buy back basically one of these cards that's going to get them another draw. Probably not worth it. Probably better for them to just leave it around and hope they draw into more combo pieces. So, understandable. We'll draw Assassin's Trophy. Alright, these are good cards to have in our hand in the matchup. The big problem is we kind of have to take the Liliana up to threaten the ultimate. And so, while we could blow both of these right here, we could just go, we can't even do that. Field of Ruin prevents us from doing so. Yeah, so it's a little bit of an awkward situation here. But, therefore, I think the play here is to crack the clue, and maybe we'll find something that we're okay to pitch to Liliana here. Oh, Blooming Marsh. Yeah, this is not ideal also because... so we could play the Marsh and make a clue, and then take Liliana up, pitch one of these two, and hang on to the other. We'd probably be pitching Decay and hanging on to Trophy in case they top deck a KRark-clan Ironworks, which is CMC 4. Or we could tick her up and pitch the Blooming Marsh. So I chose to rate these pieces of non-creature spot removal more highly than the clue in this matchup, not only because they're better on average than a blind draw, but also just because here I don't mind if they don't do anything, maybe end step decaying, engineered explosives or even Mox Opal or something like that. I don't know what it would be. But the argument for playing Blooming Marsh is that we're just emptying our hand more quickly. We're getting into top deck mode with Liliana more quickly. And making her discard effect less painful for ourselves down the road. That said, that's not as big of a concern because I plan to ultimate her probably next turn, but we'll see. We'll see. And like I said, these are potentially some very debatable lines. You'll see more of them. I am not that well-versed in this matchup, but so far I think we're piloting it pretty well. So, looks like they're going to deploy a Grove of the Burn Willows. They might have thought about just passing, trying to bait us into taking up the Lily, but they're going to deploy a Grove, they're going to crack a Star, and try to dig. Alright. Engineered Explosives is going to sweep up 2 of their own pieces, which is just a wild part of this deck, but they get to draw off of this, and they get to buy something back with their Retriever. So, Mirror Retriever is going to buy back the Scrap Trawler. Okay, that makes sense. And they will also get a draw here. Ancient Stirrings is the draw that they found. Alright, that's a good one, but they find Chromatic Star, not exactly a combo piece. And they just have to pass here. Alright, so they've got a stacked hand. We drew a Tarmogoyf, which is not bad as far as threats go, that is for sure. So do we tick up to get a threat out of their hand, or do we just ultimate the Liliana? Well, I think we just ultimate the Liliana. I think we just have to set them back on mana. And I don't really want to pitch any of these cards. They're all quite good. So how should our piles look? Well, I want something like this, you know. Obviously, with triple Grove of the Burn Willows, you're not really going to take them off of red unless you put all 3 Groves on one side. And I don't really care that much about taking them off red. You know, what is red in the deck for? Maybe literally just that Pyrite Spellbomb, at least in the main deck, and also for getting larger engineered explosives, more colors for Sunburst. Like, that's all good. But I would rather take them off of as much mana in general as possible. So separating the artifact land from the Mox Opal is the best way to do that, in my opinion. And they will take the pile of Mox Opal, sure. So I'm going to play out a Tarmogoyf. And then I actually chose to just decay this Mox Opal. We're just really crippling their mana production. Like, they have Scrap Trawler in hand, they have Chromatic Star, like, we know they have some stuff. So here, I'm just really going to try to set them back, and all of a sudden, I haven't attacked yet, but I have 10 power on board. So I get in for 4, and I'm threatening 10 next turn, and I still have Assassin's Trophy in hand as a failsafe. Alright, they do have a land. I was really hoping they wouldn't have a third land. I don't think we knew about this. Inventor's Fair is also a great one in the deck in general. Of course, it can stabilize their life total a little bit, but more importantly, it's going to go tutor for a missing combo piece once they have a big board. But they no longer have a big board, that is for sure. So here comes that star. Here comes a Terrarium. Alright. Then they're just passing, and they have that Scrap Trawler still in hand. A Liliana here would have been sweet, or a discard spell to get that out. Not to be, so we'll have to content ourselves with top-decking a fetch land to make 2 clues, which is, of course, pretty good. So here, we let on a clue. You know, hitting the Inventor's Fair is never a bad idea, really, with Field of Ruin. It's just a really important part of the deck, and of course that would make us yet another clue, so that's kind of tempting. But they need 4 mana plus, 4 mana not counting Inventor's Fair, because they have to tap that as well. So they need 5 total mana on the field. They're not really there. And even if they tap out, even if they top deck, like, land and Mox Opal somehow, you know, if they get those 2 things, maybe they crack the star, they find both of those things, they're just tapping out to tutor, then they're just dead, right? So we don't care about Inventor's Fair quite yet. It's important to really stop and think things through. Like, stage 1 of knowing this matchup, like, in novice level, is like, I don't know if Inventor's Fair really does anything, and then you lose to it. Stage 2 would be like, oh, Inventor's Fair is good, I'm going to kill it on sight. But stage 3 is saying, well, Inventor's Fair is good, but I can do the math, and it's not a threat to me this turn, so I don't need to hit it this turn. And, yeah, so we'll draw Dark Confidant, okay. You know, that's kind of whatever. We just have 11 power swinging in, and I certainly think it is better to hold up Assassin's Trophy and the clue than it is to play a Bob there. Buried Ruin. Buried Ruin is another very good utility land. Of course, buying back something from the graveyard is incredible in this deck. And they have a Scrap Trawler that they will play out. So they're going to crack Chromatic Star. This is really nice. They get to make green mana, they get to draw a card, and they get to buy something back with the Trawler. You can see how powerful of an engine this is in this deck, and that is why we were very happy to be able to take it away with Thoughtseize. They're going to buy back a Mox Opal, sure. Now here, I believe I did misplay. I think I am supposed to trophy the Trawler in response to that trigger. The trigger would still resolve, but this is just, they only get 1 piece of recursive value out of this thing before I send it away. So that was a mistake. I'm pretty positive that was a missed opportunity. And yep, they're going to cash in the Terrarian using the Mox Opal. And they get to buy back yet another thing with the Scrap Trawler. So now I catch on to their tricks a little bit belatedly, but, you know, haven't entirely missed the bus here. And we will, with their triggers on the stack, trophy this thing away. Giving them a land, you know, they've got a couple mana floating, they get a draw here, let's see what they can do. They can't do anything that's going to stop them from getting run over by a Tireless Tracker and a Tarmogoyf, both of whom are pretty sizable next turn. So, I had at least one relatively important misplay right at the end there. I clearly should have hit the Scrap Trawler at the first available opportunity, which would have been in response to those triggers the first time. So that was a mistake. That said, they were choked off on mana enough that I did not feel like I was in much danger, but still, the best practice there, as far as I can tell, would have been to hit the thing right away. So I missed that. And then, you know, there were maybe one or two other questionable lines, like hanging on to these, you know, this Decay instead of the Blooming Marsh, for example, but I think that was justifiable, and I think that worked out okay. Decaying the Mox Opal there was kind of cool. You know, they found another one, so maybe it wasn't that high impact, but I think that line had a fairly high ceiling, and of course hanging on to the Assassin's Trophy is just necessary. You just, you know, need to be able to answer KCI, or indeed in this case, answering Scrap Trawler was very, very good. So, yeah, I mean, we really... They had a pretty darn good draw, but so did we. Double Thoughtseizes into Liliana of the Veil was completely incredible. We lilied them, you know. We didn't really grind them out of resources with Liliana because their hand was mostly empty by the time we were ticking her up, right? But, so even though she didn't really grind them out of the game, her ultimate was just completely incredible. Of course, this pair of utility removal spells was very, very clutch as well, particularly the trophy at the end there. And then we just, you know, once we started playing creatures, they ended the game in an extremely rapid fashion. So KCI is kind of one of those matchups where you want a little bit of everything as far as I can tell. You want the hand disruption early for sure. Liliana of the Veil in particular is very, very good. One of the best ways to win the game. And these gold cards, these non-creature pieces of spot removal that can hit non-creatures, very, very good. And of course, as with any of these types of decks, you need a real respectable clock too. Now, we managed to put all that together game one, and getting a win against KCI game one is very, very good. Of course, we are going to improve post-side. So, yeah, let's take a look at game two and see how it goes. Alright, my friends, game two against KCI, and our hand is, I mean, it's got double Thoughtseize again, and that is completely incredible in this matchup. Any discard is most welcome, but Thoughtseize in particular, if it makes sense to, we can take away the KCI, we can take away that card Spine of Issa, and perhaps some other, you know, other big haymakers from the side. I have... Again, I'm no expert on KCI, but I have seen them in the past pivot to a more value-oriented game plan, as many combo decks in particular do against us, bringing in cards like Wormcoil Engine that they really easily can just make enough mana to cast. So Thoughtseize can take away a lot of the big scary stuff, and our life total is not all that relevant, so very happy to see double Thoughtseize. Fatal Push, I think we shave some here and we leave some here. It's okay. Sometimes it can be really good in conjunction with like a Kalitas, or if you can kind of push one of their combo creatures like Retriever or Trawler while their shields are down and then Spellbomb away the graveyard, that can be okay. So we leave some number of these in. Not exactly the greatest in the matchup though, so Fatal Push is okay. Spellbomb is good. Spellbomb's a good one. They really are dependent on the graveyard to combo off, so having something that can compete with that while also, you know, of course, keeping us even on cards is nice. But where the hand lacks some power is in the threat suite. Of course, Tireless Tracker is a bit slow, especially on the draw, and especially with only 2 lands in hand. So we'll have to see how it pans out, but our opponent is keeping 7, and I do not think we can mulligan this. It's got the Thought Seizes, it's got the Spell Bomb. I think we're fine. Forest into Terrarian. Okay, that's a little less explosive than their start last time, and we will draw an Assassin's Trophy, which, hey, it's a really good card in the matchup, so we do need to hit land drops, but I won't complain about the trophy. Let's see what they've got. Alright, so they have Forest and Terrarian on field. They have lands number 2 and 3 in hand. They have Yavimaya Coast. So this was interesting because they showed us triple Grove of the Burn Willows game 1, and now they're showing us Yavimaya Coast again. I don't know if, like, legitimately splashing 2 colors is stock or not. Maybe this is part of a sideboard package. This certainly looks like a sideboard card to me. Sai Master Thopterist. This is, of course, just a way to pivot again to a plan B that's better against a grindy, interactive deck like ours. So this guy is going to churn out an army of Thopters and can cash in some Thopters or some cards like Terrarian that they want to put in the graveyard anyway to draw a card. So that's a very, very nice fit in the deck. Great against us. Chromatic Star is, of course, just, it's just going to do star things. It's an early play. It can fix their mana. It can be part of the value train, or it can just dig. And Engineered Explosives, a good piece of catch-all removal. So what do we take? All 3 of these are valid takes, in my opinion. So let's figure it out. We have Engineered Explosives, again, is kind of in the same situation as it was last game, where they might have to blind name it. They'll probably name it on 2, and right now we don't care about that. Even if they name it on 3, I certainly don't need to play any other 3-drops. If I do choose to play a Tireless Tracker into this, well, they pretty much have to crack it right away, right? Because otherwise the tracker can just run away with the game. So this is not going to be any worse than a 1-for-1. Of course, it also has other implications. It can be part of the combo and all that, but they don't have any combo pieces in hand, so I have to evaluate these as they are. I think I can afford to leave the EE in hand. So it's between Sai Master Thopterist and Chromatic Star. I think Sai is definitely one that I'm interested in taking, but again, I can take that away next turn. They're not going to play it turn 2. And I might even be able to get away with not taking it at all and killing it with our Fatal Push. Depends on what we draw, of course. But for those reasons, I kind of take the most unassuming card in their hand there, which is Chromatic Star. I think that is correct, but as always, and especially with this matchup, please let me know your thoughts. I'm trying to help all of you get better. I'm trying to provide some good, entertaining content for you, but I'm also... We're all a work in progress, right? We're all trying to get better. We all have room to grow, and I sure do have room to grow in this matchup. So they'll play out the Yavimaya Coast. I don't really know what they did there. I think they kind of tapped because they thought about doing something, and then they decided not to, and maybe they just said go ahead, or they misclicked. I don't really know, but I don't think they did anything there. They're just tapping the coast painlessly to send us a message. Fair enough. Alright, we'll draw Tarmogoyf. That's a great card in the matchup. It might also incentivize them to play EE out on 2, which might be good or might be bad. However, I think we do have to Thought Seize here. We might want to take the Sai away. We might want to just look at their hand and see what else we can take. They found a Mere Retriever. So Mere Retriever is a problem. It's going to be part of the combo. If they rip other combo pieces off the top, we could be in big, big trouble. Or it's just a nice value play. Chromatic Star is something that it can buy back as soon as it dies, and that's a decent one. So, I'm saying that I think I can beat this Sai Master Thopterist. I think I'm going to be able to kill it next turn with one of these 2 cards, so I'm just going to go Forest and Denial Spellbomb and pass. So, leaving the Sai is a little bit sketchy. Deploying the Spellbomb, is potentially a little bit sketchy. Maybe they bring in Nature's Claim or whatever, but we are about as safe from this stuff as we can be, right? I don't think they're going to go land into Sai into EE on 0 just to draw a card. Like, EE is better than that in this matchup, right? They're probably going to try to wait till I show them a threat. But we'll have to see, and as some of the lines have been, that one was debatable too. So they'll play a Buried Ruin. Looks like we're going to see them. Yep, it's the Sai. They're taking 1 from the Painland. All right. Our decision pays off because they kind of have to run out the Sai without any immediate follow-up. They didn't, like, Mox Opal there would have been the best, right? Because they get to play that for free. They get to make an artifact right away. They, of course, like I said, could have done that with EE, but they didn't want to waste it that way. I understand. Makes sense. So we're kind of rewarded for that, but we're also kind of punished by our draws. Like, we found a couple good cards. Goyf is good. Trophy's very good. You know, even Kalitas is definitely a fine one, but we just don't have the land, so what do? If we let them untap with Sai, that could be very, very bad. So, as suboptimal as this is, here's what I chose to do. Yeah, we're going to crack the Spell Bomb. We don't even have double black, so we can't draw a card, so that's just kind of awful. But we do get Revolt Trigger for Fatal Push. We get to kill that. You know, a creature like this that's not recursive, doesn't buy back anything when it dies, and of course is a high priority target, that is the best possible use case, probably for a Fatal Push. But that just feels bad, right? Like, we don't have access to our way to blow out their graveyard anymore. We didn't even get a card off of it. We had an awkward turn where we didn't use all of our mana. That was just suboptimal all around, but I don't think we had a better play there. I would rather hang on to Assassin's Trophy, personally. Maybe I'm overrating this, but the ability to answer KCI is still very, very important. So they're going to play a Grove of the Burn Willows, and they will pass. All right. Blooming Marsh, you're a little bit late, but I'm still happy to see you. So, couple options here. We could play the Tarmogoyf, or we could play the Trophy. Excuse me, or we could hold up the Trophy and pass, or we could play the Tracker. I chose to run out the Tracker, partially because I don't mind if this incentivizes them into playing EE on 3, because A, that's going to use up their whole turn, and B, I kind of just rate the Tarmogoyf more highly here. I kind of just want the really big clock to stick around. And also, so you know, Tracker, it gets a threat down, we're proactive, we use our mana efficiently this turn, it might force them into taking action with that explosives, all of that is fine. Also, it allows me to have the potential to draw an untapped land next turn and have a double spell turn of Goyf while holding up Trophy and potentially casting it at some point. So that's why I ran the Tracker out there. Yet another thing that doesn't really feel optimal, but look, you know, they've been low on cards for a little while, and they're just continuing to draw these dual lands. Not necessarily the best. However, yeah, whenever they tap for 4, you kind of wince a little bit, and they sure do have it. They have the KCI, so they're going to go off at least a little bit here, right? They get to go sack the Terrarian, draw a card, play the EE out for 0. So they had the mana there to play it on 3, but they're just going to pass. So I draw Field of Ruin, and yeah, so obviously going to lead off on that. We do have the potential for a double spell turn now, and that's very good. So I think before I do anything else, I just have to kill this thing with Assassin's Trophy. Now, this is kind of bad because of how they sequenced last turn. They held up the Buried Ruin, they played this, which is basically, with KCI on the field, it's basically a Mana Rock. It's kind of like a one-use, two-shot Mana Rock, kind of like a Pentad Prism, right? So, but for only colorless land. So, watch what they get to do here. They get to respond, sacrificing the EE, adding 2 mana. They'll allow this to resolve so they can go get a land off of it, and then they get to sack the Buried Ruin to buy back the KCI. This deck is so resilient, it's unbelievable, and we couldn't even play around that by opening up on Field of Ruin, because then they would have just sacked the Buried Ruin in response. They would have bought back the Terrarion, which is also bad for us, especially because that means our Field of Ruin just blanks, and we don't do anything else this turn, we just whiff. We don't even get to tutor a land. So there was no real way to play around that. We did recognize that they had that potential, but there's not much we can do. I think we're just supposed to still trophy away that KCI. So they have to play it again next turn, and they might be able to do some work with it, but at least we can, you know, at least they used up their Buried Ruin. Maybe we can draw another form of removal for it. But we do get to play out the Tarmogoyf, so we've got a 2-turn clock on the field, even if we don't crack a clue. Darksteel Citadel, you know, they are drawing a lot of lands. Could allow them to play out some scary stuff, but, you know, they're not finding as much action as they might need. And what are they doing here? Engineered Explosives on 3. Okay, so they're rating the Tireless Tracker pretty highly as a threat. I guess they think they can beat just the Tarmogoyf as long as we're not drawing a bunch of cards. So right away they're going to sweep away the Tracker. Definitely makes sense. Don't want to let us get any more clues. We will draw another Tarmogoyf. Alright, so what do we do here? What do we do here? We could open on Field of Ruin, but that does not accomplish anything, you know, taking them off of red. I don't think that matters right now. So we could play a Tarmogoyf and hold up a clue. We could crack a clue first to see if we draw anything like Trophy that we might want to hold up and not play to the board at all. Or we could just play out the Kalitas, which is very mana efficient. And, of course, Kalitas can disrupt their combo pretty well, you know, the creature part of their combo. Yeah, he's kind of like a rest in peace against creatures, so definitely a few good options here. The first thing I'm going to do is just get in with a Tarmogoyf, see if this prompts them into taking any actions, but it won't because, of course, we know the one card in their hand is KCI. And yeah, I think just to play around Engineered Explosives, just to be mana efficient, just to play around the combo, because of course they have the namesake combo piece in hand, we play the Kalitas there. I think that's the play. Now, this does not present lethal for the next turn. That's the only downside, but it's a little bit safer, in my opinion. So they're going to play a Mind Stone. They're going to play out the KCI, just emptying their hand, being mana efficient, playing around discard. Sure. And we promptly draw the discard. Bit of a tilt. Bit of a tilt. So here we're going to open up on the clue. Looking for an Assassin's Trophy for the KCI. We don't have it. Well, so here we're punished pretty hard for not playing out that Tarmogoyf because they would, of course, just be dead. Or I guess they rather would have had to play and crack the Mind Stone and try to find, I guess, Engineered Explosives, or maybe they play some other form of removal. I don't know. But, yeah, here we're just going to play the Tarmogoyf. We're just going shields down and saying, hey, you know, you have a draw step. Can you do anything? They have a cantrip as well available. They'll take that opportunity with Mind Stone. And after seeing 2 cards, they are just going to scoop. We have a gigantic board, and they cannot combo off, and they cannot deal with our board, it seems. So, yeah. We got KCI 2-0. We got KCI 2-0. So, while I played this matchup, I was like, man, I don't know this matchup as well as I should. That's why I made the disclaimer at the beginning. But, you know, maybe I just don't know the matchup enough to see my mistakes. But playing it back here, I don't think I made too many questionable plays besides, of course, failing to trophy the Trawler right away at the first opportunity at the end of Game 1. Otherwise, like, you know, I think in this game in particular, you know, I think we took the right cards with our Thought Seizes. I think using the Spell Bomb suboptimally just to get a couple things out of the yard and get Revolt to kill the Sai, I think that was fine. I think trophying the KCI there, even though we knew they could buy it back with Buried Ruin, also fine. I think we knew when to hit the gas, and, you know, again, maybe we should have just made them have something and played out the Tarmogoyf instead of Kalitas on the previous turn just to get the clock 1 turn quicker. But yeah, I mean, tough calls all around. And that's how a matchup like this goes. A lot of the times the lines are not that obvious. partially because they have so many moving pieces and they're such a hard deck to conceptualize. I've heard it said that even pro players just do not intuitively understand how the KCI deck works and had to really sit down and learn it in order to get it. So partially it's because of the intrinsically complicated nature of their deck. Partially it's because the amount of recursion that goes on over there is definitely something that changes the texture of the game. Like, we interact heavily, they recur heavily, a lot of stuff is getting bought back. You kind of have to incorporate all that. It just makes decisions a lot more complicated. And then, of course, partially because, in general, just playing Golgari with all the decision points we have, with all the branches that grow off of the decision tree in any given game, that's not an easy thing in and of itself. So, yeah, it felt at the time like I maybe missed a few tricks and made a few suboptimal plays, but looking back, I only really see one for sure. But as a way to grow as a player and as a way to kick off discussion, I would love to hear your thoughts. So if you have any objections to the lines I took, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And I would also love to hear any general advice about KCI. This is a matchup that I think we line up pretty well against, just again because we have the hand disruption, we have the ability to kill both creature and non-creature permanents with some pretty good consistency and efficiency, and we have a clock. All of the things you want against a permanent-based combo deck, which this certainly is. So I think our matchup here is fine, even though I don't know it as well as I know most other matchups. I do have a pretty good record on it. I was beating it a lot when I used to play Abzan and when the deck was new. Of course, I had Stony Silence there, so that was a game changer, but still. I think overall this Golgari deck is much stronger than what I was playing on Abzan, so even though we don't have access to Stony, we still have a lot of really good tools in the matchup. I think the matchup should still be just fine, but being favored is no excuse to not have thorough knowledge about a matchup. So, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are about the matchup in general, about the lines I took here, and as always, I appreciate your feedback, and I appreciate your views, your support, all of the above. It is much appreciated. I hope you enjoyed the matchup. I know KCI is not everyone's cup of tea. I certainly, it's the type of deck that just kind of makes me roll my eyes a little bit. But, hey, it's a part of Magic. It's a part of Modern. I like that these decks can exist in Modern, that is for sure. They're just, KCI in particular is not my favorite, but there are worse things out there, so, and it's good to get a matchup recorded against them, that is for sure. And it also feels great to get the old 2-0. So, as always, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned to the channel. More gameplay to come, and I will see you for the next video. Have a great day.